The golden Cadillac hummed a low, luxurious growl against the muted hum of Memphis traffic. Inside, Elvis Presley leaned his head against the plush leather seat, watching the world blur by. Outside, the sun was a relentless Tennessee blaze, shimmering off the chrome and glass of the downtown buildings. But for Elvis, the heat wasn't just external. It was a simmering ache deep within him. He was Elvis the King. His albums sold millions, his movies filled theaters, and his concerts were legendary, each one a screaming, adoring whirlwind of devotion. He lived in Graceland, a mansion that shimmered with prosperity, surrounded by family, friends, and staff. He had everything money could buy and adoration that money couldn't. Yet a hollow feeling had been lingering lately, a quiet whisper beneath the roaring applause. It was the feeling of being a spectacle, a gilded cage. Every move was watched, every word dissected. The demands never stopped. Record labels wanted new hits. Movie studios wanted new films. Fans wanted more of him, and sometimes Elvis just wanted to be himself. Just plain Elvis. Not the king. He'd slipped out this morning, a rare moment of semi-freedom. His security team, usually a shadow, had been given a strict instruction to hang back to let him breathe. He needed to drive, just drive, and see the real Memphis, the one beyond the flashing cameras and screaming fans. Cadillac turned off the main avenue, heading down a quieter street, lined with small independent shops and older brick buildings. The scent of exhaust, mixed with something sweeter, a hint of honeysuckle from a nearby garden. This was the Memphis he remembered from his younger days, before the fame had built an invisible wall around him. His eyes scanned the street, taking in the everyday rhythm of life. A woman struggled with a bag of groceries. A group of kids laughed, chasing a stray dog. Simple moments, yet they felt alien to him now, like scenes from a movie he wasn't allowed to be in. Then he saw it. Tucked against the chipped brick wall of a hardware store, beneath a faded awning, was a small makeshift flower stand. It wasn't much. A rickety wooden table, a couple of plastic buckets, and a small worn sign advertising fresh blooms. A young woman stood behind the table, her shoulders slightly slumped. She looked tired, her hands calloused but gentle as she rearranged a wilting bouquet of daisies. The flowers themselves were a riot of color, vibrant reds, sunny yellows, soft pinks, but they seemed to struggle in the oppressive heat, their petals drooping slightly. Elvis slowed the contrast to the extravagance of his life. No flashing lights, no roaring crowds, just a quiet struggle to sell a few flowers. He imagined her day, waking early, buying the flowers, setting up her stand, waiting, hoping for customers. It seemed so fragile, so vulnerable. A customer approached the stand, haggled over the price of a single rose, and walked away, leaving the young woman sighing softly. She looked at the remaining flowers, a worried crease forming between her eyebrows. Something stirred within Elvis, a flicker of an idea. It wasn't about the flowers themselves, not really. It was about the quiet dignity of the woman, the smallness of her struggle, and the stark contrast to his own overwhelming abundance. He felt a sudden, inexplicable urge to bridge that gap, to do something small, something real, something that wasn't about fame or money or contracts. He imagined the sweet scent of the blossoms, the burst of color, and then he imagined the small flicker of hope he might bring to someone, anyone, through them. He thought about the joy flowers could bring, how they brightened a room, lifted a spirit. And in that moment, the weight of his gold, the burden of his fame seemed to lift just a little. He passed the stand, then checked his rearview mirror. The woman was still there, meticulously plucking a yellowed leaf from a rose stem. Her face was etched with a quiet weariness. Elvis took a deep breath. He knew this was impulsive, maybe even a little crazy, given who he was. But the thought, once planted, wouldn't go away. It felt right in a way. Nothing else had felt right in a long time. He turned the Cadillac around, the tires crunching softly on the asphalt. He was going back. He was going to buy those flowers, all of them, and he had no idea yet what he would do with them. But for the first time that day, a genuine, unburdened smile touched his lips. The golden Cadillac pulled up to the curb beside the flower stand, its polished surface reflecting the afternoon sun. Maria, the flower vendor, looked up, a flicker of irritation crossing her face. Rich folks in fancy cars often stopped but rarely bought much. They'd ask prices, maybe buy a single stem, then speed off, leaving her with the wilting reality of her unsold inventory. But this car, it was different, too shiny, too sleek, and a man behind the wheel, even with sunglasses shading his eyes, seemed familiar. She dismissed the thought. Just another wealthy tourist. The driver's side window hummed down, revealing a face she knew, yet couldn't quite believe. Her jaw dropped slightly. It was him, the king, Elvis Presley. Her heart hammered against her ribs. What on earth was he doing on her street at her little stand? Elvis took off his sunglasses, revealing eyes that were surprisingly kind, though a little tired. "Ma'am," he said, his voice a low, melodic rumble, just like on the records. "Good afternoon." Maria could only stammer. "Mr. Presley, is everything all right?" She glanced around, half expecting a crowd to materialize out of thin air, but the street remained quiet. Elvis chuckled, a soft, genuine sound. "Everything's fine, ma'am. Just admiring your beautiful flowers." He gestured to the buckets. "How much for all of them?" Maria blinked. "All of them." Her mind raced. He must mean a big bouquet for a special occasion. "You mean like a really big arrangement?" Elvis shook his head. "No, ma'am, I mean all of them, every single flower you have here." Maria stared at him, bewildered. She had roses, lilies, daisies, carnations, snapdragons, dozens of bouquets, hundreds of individual stems. Buying them all would be, well, it would be a miracle. It would clear her entire stock, probably more than she sold in a week. "Sir, are you serious?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. She thought it was a joke, a trick. People like him didn't just buy out small-time vendors. Elvis nodded, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Never been more serious, ma'am. I want to buy every single flower, every bloom, every bud, every stem." Maria's mind whirled. "Well, there's a lot. I'd have to count it all up." She started mentally tallying. It would be hundreds of dollars, maybe even 1,000. She hadn't made that much in weeks. "Don't you worry about the sum, ma'am," Elvis said gently. "Just tell me what you'd charge for it all, if someone were to buy your entire day's inventory right now." He pulled a thick wad of bills from his wallet. It looked like a small fortune. Maria, still in a daze, quickly calculated. She gave him a fair price, one that would cover her costs and give her a decent profit, but still felt too small for him. She quoted the number, her voice trembling slightly. Elvis didn't bat an eye. He counted out the exact amount, then added a generous extra $100 bill. "This is for your trouble, ma'am, and for the beautiful work you do." Maria took the money, her fingers brushing against his. The crisp bills felt real in her hand. This was more money than she'd seen in a long time. Enough to pay her rent, buy more reliable stock, maybe even fix the leaky roof in her small apartment. "But why, Mr. Presley?" she asked, unable to contain her curiosity. "Are you throwing a big party? Or—" Elvis paused, looking at the vibrant mass of flowers. He hadn't fully decided yet. "Something like that, ma'am," he said vaguely, a twinkle in his eye. "Let's just say they're for someone special. A lot of special someones, actually." He leaned out of the window slightly. "Now how about you help me load them into the car?" Maria, still reeling, quickly nodded. "Of course, Mr. Presley. Let me get some of these buckets out of the way. We can put them on the back seat, the floor." Together with surprising efficiency, they began to load the car. The golden Cadillac, designed for comfort and luxury, soon transformed into a fragrant, vibrant jungle. Bouquets filled the entire back seat, overflowed onto the floorboards, and even spilled into the passenger footwell. the air inside the car filled with the intoxicating scent of roses, lilies, and fresh greenery. Maria watched him, a mix of awe and gratitude swirling inside her. He wasn't arrogant or demanding, he was just a man doing a surprisingly kind thing. As he closed the last door, Elvis turned to her, a genuine warm smile on his face. "Thank you, ma'am," he said. "You've been a great help, and your flowers truly are beautiful." Maria could only nod, tears welling in her eyes. "Thank you, Mr. Presley," she managed, her voice thick with emotion. "You have no idea what this means to me." Elvis gave her a final nod, a silent acknowledgement of her words. He started the car, the engine purring softly. As the Cadillac pulled away, Maria stood by her now empty stand, clutching the money in her hand, watching the golden car laden with blooms disappear down the street. She felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in years, and she couldn't help but wonder, who were all these special someones who were about to receive a gift from the king? Cadillac glided through the streets of Memphis, no longer a symbol of detached luxury, but a fragrant mobile garden. Elvis was surrounded by color and scent, an intoxicating mix that filled the confines of the car. Roses brushed against his ear, lilies tickled his chin, and the sheer volume of blooms was almost overwhelming. Yet it wasn't a burden. Instead, he felt a lightness, a surprising buoyancy. He looked at the kaleidoscope of petals, the vibrant reds and sunny yellows, the soft blues and delicate whites. He'd bought them all on impulse, a sudden whim to help the tired vendor. But now the question remained, what exactly was he going to do with them? He didn't have a party planned, no grand gala, no awards ceremony. He didn't even have one specific person in mind. The initial thought had just been to buy them, to give the struggling woman a good day, to feel like he was doing something real, tangible, outside the glitzy bubble of his fame. He drove aimlessly for a few minutes, the sweet perfume of the flowers filling his lungs. He felt a different kind of buzz than the roar of a crowd or the flash of cameras. This was quieter, deeper. It felt right. His eyes drifted to the side of the road and he saw it. Tall brick building, nondescript except for the large bold letters above its main entrance. Memphis General Hospital. A thought, like a sudden spark, ignited in his mind. Hospital patients? People who are hurting, who are lonely, who are facing difficult days. People who might not have much to look forward to, or much beauty in their immediate surroundings. Flowers, they were symbols of cheer, of life, of hope. They could brighten a sterile room, bring a smile to a weary face. It hit him with the force of a revelation. This wasn't about him. It wasn't about proving anything or getting publicity. It was about spreading a little bit of joy, quietly, genuinely. He had a car full of beauty and a hospital full of people who needed it. The idea settled in his heart, warm and clear. He imagined a patient, perhaps an elderly woman, staring at a blank wall, then seeing a vibrant bouquet appear. He pictured a child scared of needles and doctors finding comfort in a soft petal. Felt so much more meaningful than signing autographs or posing for photos. It felt like giving, but how to do it? He couldn't just walk in Elvis Presley with a carload of flowers. It would cause a riot, a frenzy. The hospital would be swamped with fans and reporters that would defeat the entire purpose. He wanted this to be a simple, genuine act of kindness, not another spectacle. He pulled over to the side of the road, the scent of roses suddenly more purposeful. He reached for the car phone, an early clunky version of mobile communication, and dialed a familiar number. It was for Joe Esposito, one of his closest and most trusted aides, almost family. "Joe," Elvis said, his voice calm, but with an underlying excitement Joe would recognize. "It's Elvis. I need a favor, a quiet one." Joe, ever practical, replied, "Quiet with you, boss. That's a tall order. What's up?" "I'm at Memphis, General," Elvis explained, gesturing vaguely at the building. "And I've got a car full of flowers. I mean a car full like every flower, from a whole stand." There was a moment of silence on the other end. Then Joe's bewildered voice. "Flowers, Elvis, are you feeling all right? And you want to take them to a hospital?" "I'm feeling great, Joe. Better than I have in a while, actually. Look, I want to give them to the patients. Quietly, no fanfare, no press, no fuss." He knew Elvis's spontaneous nature, his generous heart, but this was a new level of impulse. Yet he also heard the genuine sincerity in his friend's voice. "Okay, Elvis," Joe finally said, his voice softening. "I'll make the calls. It'll be tricky, but if anyone can pull it off, it's you. Just don't cause a stampede before I get there, all right?" Elvis chuckled. "No stampede, Joe. Just a lot of smiles, hopefully. Call me back when you've got something arranged. I'll wait here." He hung up the phone, a profound sense of purpose settling over him. The decision felt right pure. It wasn't about fame or money. It was about humanity. About reaching out. He looked at the vibrant explosion of color surrounding him. These weren't just flowers anymore. They were messengers of hope, and he, Elvis Presley, was ready to deliver them. King was about to embark on his most unusual and perhaps most meaningful gig yet. Waiting in the car, Elvis felt a mix of anticipation and nervousness. He watched as people came and went from the hospital entrance, hurried nurses, worried family members, a man hobbling on crutches. This wasn't the glitzy world he was used to. This was real life, raw and unfiltered. His phone buzzed. It was Joe. "All right, Elvis." Joe's voice came through a little strained. It took some convincing and a few phone calls to some very surprised hospital administrators, but they're willing to accommodate you under a few strict conditions. "Lay 'em on me," Elvis said, already prepared. "First, absolute discretion. No cameras, no reporters. You'll enter through a service entrance. Second, you'll be accompanied by a hospital representative. Lee Mustard. They'll have staff ready to help you unload. They're pretty amazed by the whole thing. I have to say the chief of nursing, a woman named Nurse Johnson, will meet you at the service entrance in 5 minutes. She's expecting a private donor with a large floral delivery. They still don't quite believe it's you, Elvis. Keep it low-key." "Will do, Joe." "Thanks." Elvis hung up, a fresh wave of excitement washing over him. This was happening. He maneuvered the Cadillac around to the side of the hospital, following Joe's directions. He pulled up to a set of double doors, marked "Staff Only, Deliveries." Almost immediately, a woman in crisp white scrubs, her graying hair pulled back neatly, emerged. She had a kind, no-nonsense face. This must be Nurse Johnson. She looked at the gold Cadillac, then back at him, her eyes widening slightly as she recognized him, despite his casual clothes and sunglasses. "Mr. Presley," she said, a hint of awe in her voice quickly replaced by professionalism. "I'm Nurse Johnson. We spoke with your associate. Welcome to Memphis, General." Elvis gave her a charming smile, taking off his sunglasses. "Nurse Johnson, thank you for having me. And please call me Elvis." He gestured to the back of the car. "As you can see, I've brought a few flowers." Nurse Johnson peered into the car, and her eyes nearly popped out. "My word, that's quite a few, Mr. Elvis. We were expecting a large delivery, but not this." She smiled a genuine warm smile. "They're magnificent." "They're for your patients," Elvis said simply. "I just wanted to bring a little bit of cheer, a little color to brighten their day." Nurse Johnson looked at him, and for a moment the celebrity facade seemed to fade. She saw a man who truly wanted to do good. "That is incredibly thoughtful of you, Elvis. These patients, they truly need something to lift their spirits." She gestured to 2 orderlies who had just arrived with large carts. "Gentlemen, please assist Mr. Presley with his generous donation." The orderlies, their eyes wide with surprise, quickly and carefully began unloading the bouquets. The hospital hallway, usually smelling of antiseptic, began to fill with the sweet, fresh scent of roses and lilies. Passers-by in the hallway paused, their faces a mix of confusion and curiosity. Nurse Johnson quickly ushered them along, maintaining the requested discretion. "We've cleared a small reception area for the flowers," Nurse Johnson explained as they worked. "We can make smaller arrangements there and then. If you're truly willing, you can help us deliver them to a few of the wards." "That's exactly what I'd like to do," Elvis said, his voice firm. He wasn't here just to drop them off. He wanted to see the joy, to connect. As the last bouquet was placed on a cart, Nurse Johnson looked at him, her expression softening. "You know, Elvis," she said quietly, "we get a lot of famous visitors, but rarely one who comes with such a simple, beautiful intention. This means a great deal." Elvis just nodded, a quiet satisfaction settling in his heart. The scent of the flowers surrounded him, a comforting embrace. He was no longer the king on stage, but a messenger of beauty and hope. He was ready to walk the hospital halls to bring a moment of light in the shadowed rooms. And for the first time in a long time, he felt a genuine sense of anticipation for what lay ahead. The hospital corridors quiet, hushed. The usual clatter and chatter seemed to soften in the presence of Elvis and his floral entourage. Nurse Johnson led the way, a cart laden with vibrant bouquets trailing behind. Elvis walked beside her, his shoulders relaxed, a quiet readiness in his posture. He wasn't wearing an elaborate suit, just a simple shirt and trousers, but his presence was still undeniably powerful. Nurse Johnson stopped outside a door. "Our first patient," she whispered, "is Mrs. Edna Mae Peterson. She's 82, recovering from a hip fracture. Her family lives far away, and she gets a bit lonely sometimes." Elvis nodded, a pang of empathy striking him. Loneliness was a familiar adversary, even for a global star. He smoothed down his hair, took a deep breath, and followed Nurse Johnson inside. The room was small, neat, and sterile. Mrs. Peterson lay in the bed, looking frail and distant, staring at the ceiling. Her eyes were clouded with age and perhaps a touch of sadness. "Mrs. Peterson," Nurse Johnson said softly, "you have a visitor and a special delivery." Mrs. Peterson slowly turned her head, her eyes widening slightly as she saw Elvis. A flicker of recognition. Then disbelief crossed her face. "My goodness," she whispered, her voice raspy. "Am I dreaming?" Elvis walked to her bedside, a warm, gentle smile on his face. Picked a beautiful bouquet of mixed wildflowers from the cart, their colors bright and cheerful. "No dream, ma'am," he said, his voice soft, almost a lullaby. "Just a little gift for you. I heard you might enjoy some company and some beauty." He held out the flowers. Mrs. Peterson reached out a trembling hand, her fingers brushing the soft petals. Tear welled in the corner of her eye, tracing a path down a wrinkled cheek. "Oh, Mr. Presley," she choked out, They're just lovely. So lovely." She buried her face in the blossoms, inhaling their sweet fragrance. Elvis pulled up a small chair next to her bed. "They came from a lovely lady down the street," he explained, "who grows the prettiest flowers in Memphis." He didn't mention he'd bought them all. He just wanted her to feel the symbol gifted. "How are you feeling today, Mrs. Peterson?" "Better now, dear," she said, looking at him with watery eyes. Much better. It's been a long time since anyone brought me flowers." She looked at the bouquet, then back at him. "You know, my husband, God rest his soul, he used to bring me flowers every anniversary, roses always red." Elvis listened, truly listened as she spoke. He heard the longing in her voice, the quiet ache of memory. He didn't rush her, didn't interrupt. He just let her talk. He asked her about her husband, about her life, about the old days in Memphis. Mrs. Peterson, initially reserved, began to open up, sharing stories, her voice gaining strength, her eyes losing their cloudiness. He learned about her love for gardening before her hip gave out, about her grandnieces, who lived too far away to visit often. He shared a small anecdote about his own grandmother, about her love for her garden, The conversation flowed easily, naturally. It was a simple exchange. No autographs requested, no demands. Just two people connecting. Elvis felt a profound sense of peace. This wasn't performing. This was just being. After about 15 minutes, Nurse Johnson gently reminded him of the time and the other patients waiting. Elvis stood up. "It was a real pleasure meeting you, Mrs. Peterson," he said, taking her hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Pleasure was all mine, Mr. Presley," she said, her voice clear now, a genuine smile lighting her face. "Thank you for the flowers and for the talk. You're a kind young man." As he walked out of the room, leaving the vibrant flowers on her bedside table, Elvis felt a warmth spread through his chest. It wasn't the fleeting warmth of applause, but a deep, lasting glow. He'd brought a moment of beauty, a connection to someone who needed it. He'd felt her loneliness, and he'd eased it, however briefly. This, he realized, was a different kind of performance, and perhaps the most rewarding one of all. He was ready for the next room, ready to share more petals of hope. Nurse Johnson guided Elvis to the next room, her step a little lighter. She'd witnessed the transformation in Mrs. Peterson, and it spoke volumes. This wasn't just a publicity stunt. This was genuine kindness. "This is Michael," she said, stopping outside a door decorated with colorful drawings. "He's 10 years old, and he's a little scared about his surgery. Tomorrow he's got a broken leg from a bicycle accident." Elvis felt a familiar pang. He remembered his own childhood fears, the daunting prospect of a hospital. He took a deep breath, choosing a bright, sunny bouquet of yellow daisies and blue irises, something cheerful. He stepped inside. Michael lay in bed, one leg elevated in a traction device, looking small and vulnerable. His face was pale, his eyes fixed on the television screen, playing a cartoon, but he wasn't really watching. He was quiet, withdrawn. His parents sat beside him, looking equally worried. "Michael," Nurse Johnson said gently. Michael slowly turned his head, his eyes widening to saucers as he saw Elvis. He blinked, as if trying to clear his vision. His parents gasped softly, their hands flying to their mouths. Elvis offered a warm, reassuring smile. "Hey there, Michael," he said, his voice soft and friendly. "Heard you had a bit of a tumble. I brought you some sunshine to help cheer you up." He held out the daisies. Michael stared at the flowers, then at Elvis, then back at the flowers. He didn't speak. He just looked utterly stunned. "Go on, son," Michael's father encouraged, a tremor in his voice. "Take them." "It's Mr. Presley." Michael slowly reached out, his small fingers brushing the petals. He took the bouquet, holding it carefully. The bright yellow seemed to glow against his hospital gown. They're pretty," Michael whispered, his voice barely audible. "They certainly are," Elvis agreed, pulling up a chair. "They remind me of a field back home in Mississippi, full of wildflowers." "So, what kind of bike were you riding?" Elvis asked, leaning forward slightly, making eye contact. "Was it one of those fast ones?" Michael, encouraged, slowly started to talk. He told Elvis about his bike, about the ramp he was trying to jump, about the sudden crash. Elvis listened patiently, nodding, offering words of encouragement. He talked about how brave Michael was facing surgery and how he'd be back on his feet and riding again before he knew it. "You know, sometimes even grown-ups like me get scared," Elvis confessed, lowering his voice conspiratorially, "especially when you're about to do something big. But you just gotta remember, you're strong. And you got people who care about you right here." He gestured to Michael's parents, who were watching with tears in their eyes. Michael looked at his parents, then back at Elvis. He clutched the daisies tighter. "Are you really Elvis?" he asked. Still a bit disbelieving, Elvis smiled. "Last time I checked. Yep, but today I'm just a guy who wanted to bring you some flowers and tell you that you're one of the bravest kids I've ever met." Michael's chest puffed out just a little. A flicker of courage, of pride, replaced the fear in his eyes. After a few more minutes of quiet conversation, Elvis stood up. "Well, Michael," he said, "I gotta go spread some more cheer. but I'll be thinking about you tomorrow. You're going to do great." He offered a thumbs up. Michael managed a small, brave smile and a nod. "Thank you, Elvis," he said, his voice stronger this time. "Thank you for the flowers." As Elvis left the room, he heard Michael's mother quietly say, "Honey, do you know who that was? That was Elvis Presley." And then Michael's voice, a little louder, "I know, Mom. And he said I was brave." Elvis walked down the corridor. The cheerful daisies still in his mind, he'd helped a scared child find a spark of courage. He felt a different kind of energy buzzing through him now. Not the adrenaline of the stage, but the quiet satisfaction of a heart touched. Each petal, he realized truly, carried a bit of hope, a bit of courage, a bit of life, and he had a whole car full of them yet to deliver. The atmosphere shifted as Nurse Johnson led Elvis towards the maternity ward. The air grew lighter, infused with a palpable sense of joy and newness. The hushed tones of recovery gave way to soft coos, gentle cries, and the quiet murmurs of new parents. "This is usually one of our happiest wards," Nurse Johnson explained, a soft smile on her face. "But even new mothers can feel overwhelmed or a little isolated. A touch of beauty always helps." Elvis selected a few bouquets of soft, pastel-colored flowers, pale pink roses, delicate white lilies, gentle baby's breath. They seemed to perfectly match the tender fragility of new life. Their first stop was the room of Maria Rodriguez. She was propped up in bed, looking tired but radiant. Her newborn daughter nestled safely in a clear bassinet beside her. Her husband Carlos sat by her side, beaming. "Maria, Carlos," Nurse Johnson announced, "you have a very special visitor." Maria and Carlos looked up, their eyes widening in disbelief. As they recognized Elvis, Maria's hand flew to her mouth. A silent gasp, Carlos quickly stood up, almost knocking over a chair. Elvis approached them with a gentle smile. "Congratulations, you two," he said, his voice warm and sincere. "She's absolutely beautiful." He looked at the tiny sleeping infant, a wave of tenderness washing over him. He had his own daughter, Lisa Marie, and the miracle of new life always moved him. He held out the bouquet of soft pink and white. "These are for you, Maria, to celebrate this beautiful new beginning." Maria took the flowers, her eyes welling up. "Oh, Mr. Presley," she whispered. "They are exquisite, thank you. It's just so kind." "Please call me Elvis," he insisted gently. "What's her name?" "Isabella," Carlos said proudly, his arm around Maria. "Isabella Maria." "Isabella," Elvis repeated, the name sounding melodic on his tongue. "A beautiful name for a beautiful girl." He lingered for a moment, admiring the baby, then offered a few words of encouragement to the new parents. He spoke about the wonder of parenthood, the sleepless nights, the overwhelming love. He saw the tired joy in their eyes, the protective instinct of new parents. He felt a deep connection to their shared human experience, far removed from the glitz of his fame. Next, they visited a young couple barely out of their teens, who looked a little overwhelmed by their new responsibilities. Elvis gave them a cheerful bouquet of yellow and orange flowers, joking about the adventures of changing diapers and late-night feedings, making them laugh. He reminded them that they weren't alone, that countless parents had gone through this before them. He moved through the maternity ward, room by room, distributing flowers and smiles. Each interaction was brief, heartfelt. He saw the mothers' faces light up, the father's pride swell. He saw the profound love that radiated from these small, sterile rooms. One young mother, barely older than a teenager herself, looked particularly nervous. Her baby was tiny, swaddled tightly. Elvis picked a small, delicate bouquet of white flowers, like purity itself. "She's lovely," he said to the young mother, his voice soft. "You're doing a great job." The girl looked up, surprised by his gentle tone. "Thank you," she mumbled, her eyes downcast. "It's a big responsibility being a parent," Elvis continued, "but it's also the greatest gift in the world. You're strong, and you'll be a wonderful mother." He spoke from the heart, a silent message of encouragement and belief. She looked at him then, her eyes meeting his, and a faint smile touched her lips. A quiet sense of hope bloomed in her eyes, as real as the flowers in her hand. As they left the maternity ward, the soft cries of infants echoing behind them, Elvis felt a renewed sense of wonder. He had witnessed the very beginning of life, the quiet courage of new parents, the overwhelming power of love. The flowers, he realized, weren't just gifts. They were symbols. Symbols of growth, of purity, of the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. And he, the king, felt humbled by the simple, profound beauty of it all. He still had more flowers to give and more hearts to touch. The cart, once overflowing with a mountain of blossoms, was now considerably lighter. Elvis had walked through several wards, leaving a trail of color and quiet wonder in his wake. His initial nervousness had given way to a comfortable rhythm of giving and connecting. Nurse Johnson led him to a small, brightly lit brick room, offering him a glass of water. "You must be thirsty, Elvis," she said, her voice warm. "That was quite a tour. You've brought so much joy today. You wouldn't believe the difference you've made already." Elvis took a long drink, feeling a genuine tiredness settle in his bones. A good tiredness, unlike the bone-deep weariness of touring. "I wouldn't have missed it for anything, Nurse Johnson," he replied, a sincere smile on his face. "It's been humbling." A few other nurses and a doctor or two came into the break room, drawn by the unusual visitor and the lingering scent of flowers. They greeted Elvis with a mix of awe and respect, but their professionalism kept them grounded. They saw him not just as a celebrity, but as a person who had genuinely gone out of his way to do something kind. One of the nurses, a young woman with tired eyes, approached him. "Elvis," she said, her voice on the night shift. "It was on the night shift. Yeah, we're pief. Piff fry pies. That's wonderful to hear," he managed, genuinely moved. He hadn't expected such immediate, tangible feedback. He listened as the nurses shared small anecdotes about their patients, about the challenges of working in a hospital, the emotional toll it took, and the small victories that kept them going. He heard about the dedication, the long hours, the sacrifices they made for people they often didn't even know. He looked at these everyday heroes clad in their scrubs and uniforms, their faces etched with compassion and fatigue. They weren't seeking fame or fortune. They were just doing good every single day, quietly and consistently. He saw the difference they made, the lives they touched, the comfort they provided. It struck him profoundly. In his world, everything was amplified, every emotion, every action. Here, kindness was quiet, consistent, and deeply powerful. He, Elvis Presley, had a platform that reached millions. But these nurses and doctors, with their quiet, steady work, were touching individual lives in ways that were just as, if not more, significant. "You know," Elvis said, looking around at the gathered staff, "I spend a lot of time in a world of bright lights and big stages, and sometimes you forget about the real world, about what truly matters, what you all do here. It's incredible. You're the real stars." His words were met with appreciative nods and quiet murmurs of thanks. They saw his sincerity, the genuine admiration in his eyes. He wasn't just being polite, he truly meant it. He reflected on his own life. The relentless touring, the demands of the music industry, the constant pressure to be on. He loved his music, he loved his fans, but sometimes it felt like an endless performance. This visit, this simple act of giving, felt different. It was grounding. It was a reminder of what truly brought joy. Not just to others, but to himself. He realized that for all his fame and fortune, he craved these simple human connections. The genuine smile of an elderly woman, the brave look in a child's eyes, the quiet joy of new parents. These moments filled him with a richness no gold record ever could. "Are there any flowers left that you'd like to take for yourselves?" Elvis asked the staff, gesturing to the remaining few bouquets on the cart. "You all deserve some beauty, too." The nurses hesitated, then gratefully accepted a few. They chatted with him for a few more minutes, sharing stories, laughing softly. It was a rare, shared moment of humanity, celebrity, and caregivers, united by a simple act of kindness. As Elvis prepared to leave the break room, he felt a renewed sense of purpose, a quiet resolve forming within him. He had opened himself up to a different kind of experience, and it had opened him up in return. He knew this wouldn't be the last time he sought out such moments. There were so many quiet acts of kindness to be done, so many small ways to make a difference, and he, Elvis Presley, was ready to explore them. The last few bouquets remained on the cart, a poignant testament to the hundreds that had already found new homes. Elvis and Nurse Johnson walked down the final corridor, the silence around them deepened by the lingering scent of petals. "We have 2 more rooms," Nurse Johnson said, her voice soft, "and then you've touched every corner we planned." The first was a young woman recovering from a minor surgery, looking bored and restless. Elvis gave her a vibrant bouquet of mixed flowers, joking about hospital food and how much better her own kitchen would taste. When she got home, her eyes lit up, a grateful smile transforming her face. The very last room held an elderly man, a veteran, who sat by his window, staring out at the world with a quiet, distant look. He didn't speak much, Nurse Johnson had whispered, but he enjoyed the view. Elvis chose a single perfect red rose from the last bouquet, its petals unfurling in rich crimson. He approached the man's bedside, slowly. "Sir," he said, his voice gentle, "I brought you this, just a small token of appreciation for everything." The veteran slowly turned his head, his eyes, though faded with age, holding a sharp intelligence. He looked at the rose, then at Elvis. He didn't recognize him, which suited Elvis just fine. This was purely about the gesture. The man reached out a gnarled hand, his fingers trembling slightly. As he took the rose, he held it up to his nose, inhaling deeply. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. He looked at Elvis, a silent nod of thanks. "It's a beautiful day out there, sir," Elvis said, glancing at the window. "A lot of life happening." The veteran nodded again, clutching the rose. He didn't say anything, but Elvis felt a connection, a quiet understanding passing between them. It was a moment of peace, of shared humanity. With the last rose given, the cart was truly empty. Elvis felt a deep sense of calm, a profound satisfaction. He hadn't known in a long time. His body was tired, but his spirit was light, invigorated. "Thank you, Elvis," Nurse Johnson said, her voice filled with genuine emotion. "You've done something truly wonderful today, more than you know." Elvis nodded, a quiet understanding in his eyes. "The thanks belong to you, Nurse Johnson, and all your staff. You're the ones who really make a difference day in and day out." As he walked out of the hospital, the service entrance now feeling less intimidating, he took a deep breath of the fresh Memphis air. Constant buzz of fame still existed, he knew, but for a few hours, he'd stepped outside it. He'd been just a man bringing flowers, bringing smiles, and in doing so, he'd found a part of himself he hadn't realized was missing. He got into the Cadillac, the scent of 100 flowers still clinging to the upholstery, a fragrant memory of the afternoon. He didn't call Joe immediately for the next appointment. He just drove slowly, letting the experience settle. He felt changed, grounded, less of a product, more of a person. He made a silent promise to himself to seek out more moments like this, to use his blessings not just for personal gain, but for genuine quiet, to remember the faces of Mrs. Peterson and Michael and the new mothers and the quiet veteran. Meanwhile, back at her now empty flower stand, Maria had finished counting her unexpected earnings. She was still in a daze of gratitude. The next day, a local news report, picked up by an alert reporter who'd seen Elvis's car at the hospital, ran a small, discreet story. Local donor brings cheer to Memphis General. It didn't name Elvis directly, respecting the hospital's request for discretion, but it mentioned a well-known Memphis figure buying hundreds of flowers from a street vendor and delivering them to patients. Maria heard about it from a neighbor, then saw the newspaper herself. Her eyes widened as she read the words. It had to be him. It was him. her Elvis. He hadn't just bought her flowers, he had turned them into instruments of joy for others. A profound sense of pride swelled in her chest. Her humble flowers, carried by the king, had brought comfort and happiness. And for Maria, that was the most beautiful thing of all life. For Elvis resumed its usual whirlwind pace. Recording sessions, film negotiations, the constant demands of fame, but something was subtly, profoundly different. The experience at Memphis General had settled deep within him, like a quiet anchor in a stormy sea. He still rode in his golden Cadillac, still lived in Graceland, still performed to roaring crowds, but the hollow ache that had plagued him was gone, replaced by a quiet sense of purpose, a groundedness that had been missing. He found himself looking at the world with new eyes. He noticed the weary faces of people in service jobs, the quiet struggles of everyday life that his fame usually shielded him from, and he looked for opportunities to connect, to give in small personal ways. He started carrying smaller amounts of cash, not for flashy purchases, but for quiet acts of generosity. He'd slip a $100 bill to a struggling musician playing on the street, not for a song, but for their passion. He'd buy a meal for a homeless person, sitting and talking with them for a few minutes, listening to their story. He'd send anonymous gifts to local charities. His aides, like Joe Esposito, noticed the change. Elvis was calmer, more reflective. He still had his moments of intensity, his bursts of creative energy, but there was a new depth to him, a quiet strength. He spoke about the hospital visit often, not with pride, but with a sense of wonder and gratitude for the experience. "Joe," he'd said one evening, looking out at the Memphis skyline, "it's funny. You spend your life chasing hits and fame, and then you find out the real gold isn't in a record. It's in a smile from an old lady who got a rose." The story of the flowers, though kept discreet by the hospital, slowly seeped into the local Memphis lore. People talked about it, a heartwarming anecdote about their beloved king. Maria, the flower vendor, found her business subtly improving. Customers, drawn by the quiet buzz of the story, or simply sensing a good heart, sought out her stand. She never flaunted her connection to Elvis, but a quiet pride radiated from her. Her flowers seemed to bloom with new vigor, imbued with the magic of that unforgettable day. She used the money Elvis had given her wisely, reinvesting in fresher, more diverse stock and even fixing her stand, making it sturdier, more inviting. She felt a connection, a ripple effect, from that one extraordinary transaction. The hospital staff, too, remembered. Nurse Johnson would often tell the story to new recruits, not as a celebrity anecdote, but as a lesson in profound kindness. He wasn't just Elvis Presley that day, she'd say. He was just a man with a heart full of generosity, reminding us that even the smallest gesture can make the biggest difference. For Elvis, the memory of the hospital, the scent of the flowers, and the faces of the patients became a compass. It reminded him that true richness wasn't measured in album sales or box office numbers, but in the quiet currency of human connection. The adulation of millions was intoxicating. Yes, but the genuine smile of a single person, truly touched by a simple act of kindness, was profound. He continued to entertain, to dazzle, to be the king. But beneath the sequin jumpsuits and the powerful voice, Elvis Presley had found a deeper melody in his life, the sweet, quiet harmony of giving, of truly seeing and touching the lives of others. The flowers had wilted and faded, but the echoes of kindness they had carried and the quiet transformation they had wrought in the king's heart would bloom forever.